you interviewed Dave Ramsey recently. Did anything that you had in that conversation change your perspective on how he views debt or money?
As an immature entrepreneur, I used to hate on him because I'm like, well, I built my thing with debt. I've been good. But the reality is, my way is not the best way for most people. When 2008 hit, they lost it all. My dad lost his business. My mom lost all her clients. Our dream house got foreclosed on. Everything. Like, it was all gone in an instant.
Dave Ramsey has his 7 baby steps. I'm wondering what that looks like for you.
I would say, though, to the entrepreneur, especially if you haven't made money yet, I got basically 3 steps that I follow. I had to take hard money loans to buy houses, and literally debt has created what I have today. I don't have a saver's mentality. I have an earner's mentality. Like, I don't think of like the cap of what I'm at. I'm like, how do I just make more? That's how I'm going to solve my problem.
This is your last day on earth. You're with the people that you love the most. What are you saying, and why are you saying it?
I got to make sure they're safe. I mean, it all has to come back to Jesus.
Ryan, welcome to the BetterWealth show.
Hey, happy to be here, man.
So I am always very interested in how people think about wealth, think about their frameworks around, just how they view money. And in doing research, I mean, you've done everything from flipping Pokemon cards to flipping couches to flipping phones to playing professional baseball to being a realtor to being a teacher to flipping a home with $10,000 liquid, $50,000 credit card debt. Like, you've done a lot. And so before we get into like frameworks and how you view real estate, and even going to ask you about crypto and all, I want to understand, like, how did your upbringing shape how you view wealth and money?
Well, it's funny, man. I really should be scared of debt because my parents really lived on debt, and I didn't know. So I grew up very middle class. My parents, we had a pretty nice home. We built our house. My mom was a realtor, which, by the way, I never wanted to be in real estate. She was a realtor. It was what it was. I grew up playing baseball. That's all I was going to do. And then my dad owned a convenience store. So, very entrepreneurial by nature, but still, like I said, I just never even put 2 and 2 together that, I wanted to be an entrepreneur because my parents were entrepreneurs. I was just focused on baseball. But what ended up happening was we were living this life way above our means. And I didn't know, being a kid and everything else, but my parents were putting everything on credit cards, taking out, all these mortgages and different things. And then sure enough, when 2008 hit, they lost it all. My dad lost his business. My mom lost all her clients. Our dream house got foreclosed on. Oh. Everything. Like, it was all gone in an instant. And so when I became an adult, I went off to college in 2008 when all that was happening. So I kind of didn't know how bad it was, but I'm in college, just being a college kid on a scholarship, not making any money. And, they're sending me whatever they can to help me pay rent and stuff, but that was it. And, as time went on, I ended up getting drafted to play pro baseball, and that still wasn't money. Like, I had a $20,000 signing bonus. My parents had lost everything, so they couldn't support me. And I was making $1,200 a month while I was, playing. So 6 months of the year, I'd make $12,000 or $1,200. Yeah. And then the other 6 months, I have nothing.
Yeah.
They don't pay you unemployment.
Yeah.
So, dude, I had to figure out how to make money. I had no choice. And I think that watching my parents lose it all and live way above their means and everything else, it definitely made me super frugal. And it's interesting now because things have worked out. I've been able to retire my parents and basically restore what was lost in a much more better way than how they were doing it. But I kind of look back and I'm like, yeah, I could see why like people really follow like Dave Ramsey and everything. Because my parents were an example of that. And if they didn't have me, then they would literally be like, I don't know what they would be doing. It'd be really bad. And so I view wealth very differently than most people because I watched that. Yet I used debt in a different way to build everything I've built. I was like pro debt because I had to max out credit cards to get started. I had to take hard money loans to buy houses. And literally debt has created what I have today. But then as I get older now and I have more wealth, I now see myself like wanting to have less debt. Yeah. So it's just like very cyclical.
You interviewed Dave Ramsey recently.
Yeah.
How did you, number one, how did you get that interview? And number two, did anything that you had in that conversation change your perspective on how he views debt or money?
Yeah. So one of the biggest, I would say the most important thing that social media has got me is access. I was talking to a guy who I just interviewed yesterday. He sold a third of his company for $100 million. And no one really knows who he is. And he's over here coming to me. And, lots of people have come to this office, come to me. And it's like, they're way more successful than me, in terms of business. So social media gives you a lot of access, which I'm grateful for. But Dave, I met him through my friend Patrick Lencioni.
Yep.
So, I went out to Patrick's. Same thing, right? Like, I don't even remember how Patrick and I got connected, but he's like, oh, bro, come out to, the Bay, come to my office. Like, let's hang out and film and get to know each other. So we went out there. He's like, oh, bro, Dave's like one of my great friends. Let me introduce you to Dave. So he introduces us on an email, and Dave responds. I missed it. I didn't respond for like 2 weeks. And then my assistant at the time was like, hey, did you know Dave Ramsey had emailed you? And I was like, no, whoops. So I responded back, and we got it all set up. And so, that was kind of how it went.
How did that interview, did it change your perspective at all? I mean, you asked him a question around debt, and it was interesting because I view debt as it's just cash flow. It's the cost of control. And so if you have an office, if you have payroll, that's a form of debt.
That's what I said to him, yeah.
And his response was interesting, but anything that has shifted?
Well, I think it's important to look at the whole history. So I think as an immature entrepreneur, I used to hate on him because I'm like, well, I built my thing with debt. I've been good. But the reality is my way is not the best way for most people.
Yep.
And, it's like he's obviously helped a lot more people than I have.
Yep.
So clearly his advice works for the majority of people. Yep. My advice would probably work for a much smaller percentage of people. That being said, as time went on, I started to gain more and more respect for him as I met more people who had been in his circle. So I had Anthony O'Neill, and he told me a lot of things that happened behind the scenes that no one would know about. I won't repeat them, but they're really good things. And then I got to just talk to him before and after the podcast, and just truly the man believes what he says. Yeah. And he's been consistent. He's had longevity. I mean, to do the same thing for decades is crazy. Yeah. So nothing but respect for him and what he's done. And I just hope I could build an organization that has as much impact as he has. But in terms of that specific podcast, did I learn anything new? The one thing I had always thought about that I was just curious was what you said of hey, you know what? I understand that debt is not your thing. But dude, you have millions of dollars of overhead every month. That's a form of debt. You got to pay it every month, and you don't really know if it's going to perform or not. And he said, yeah. But it's different because I could fire everyone tomorrow and it's gone. Debt is not like that. If you have the mortgage on this building, I can't just go get rid of it tomorrow. I can't just leave.
Could sell it though.
But still, it's illiquid.
Yeah, that's right.
Right? And I've been in that situation many times in real estate where I'm like, dude, somebody just pay me what this is worth right now.
Yeah.
And it takes 6 months. I've had properties that have taken years to sell.
Yeah.
So I understand now, real estate is awesome. It's made me a lot of money. But I understand when you take on debt in real estate, there is real risk.
Yep. So Dave Ramsey has his 7 baby steps. I'm wondering what that looks like for you. If you were to go back to the drawing board and say, okay, this is the person I'm teaching or speaking to, and here are the steps, the first principles that I would lay a groundwork, and then we can talk about things like real estate within that. But real estate and debt are almost secondary once you kind of lay the groundwork.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I've created a lot of things over the years of my philosophy on how to make money and all that. So what I would first say is you got to first just define your goals, right? Because not everyone's meant to be an entrepreneur. Most people I talk to and most people that I teach are entrepreneurial. So my advice isn't going to make sense to the typical person who wants to have a W-2, who wants to build a career at a company. My advice really isn't for them. So I think you got to take any system and say, who is this actually for?
Yep.
Dave's is not for the entrepreneur. He has entrepreneurial things that he does as a side thing, but the majority of his advice is for a typical person, W-2, fixed income. They can't make more money. Because what I've always said is dude, I don't have a saver's mentality. I have an earner's mentality. I don't think of the cap of what I'm at. I'm how do I just make more? That's how I'm going to solve my problem. So I would say though, to the entrepreneur, especially if you haven't made money yet, I got basically 3 steps that I follow. And it's basically like the sequence and how you should invest. And then there's a bonus step. So most people, when they come to me, they're like, Ryan, so should I invest in real estate? Is the market good? Whatever else, right? And I'll say, well, like, what's your plan? What's your goal, right? You always reverse engineer, but they're like, well, I just want to build wealth in real estate. You tell me how to do it. And I'm like, okay, well, here's the thing, right? You shouldn't buy a rental property. You shouldn't do these things. And they're like, so what should I buy? I'm like, nothing. Okay. The number one first thing you need to do is invest in yourself. And it sounds, gimmicky, whatever, but it's true. And I say, look, the only person who has to live with you the rest of your life is you.
Amen.
So if you suck and you don't know anything and you're ignorant and you're not very wise, guess what? The rest of your life, you got to deal with that. So if you're to ask me, hey, I got $1,000 or $10,000, what should I invest in? People, this is the thing, people don't realize it. They have money. They have disposable income. And some people choose to just spend it and blow it. Some people choose to invest it in other things. And then some people put it in themselves. Like, even if you put in another thing, right? People don't realize the psychology of what happens. People are always like, so what do you think Bitcoin's going to do? You talked about crypto. What do you think is the next meme coin that's going to pop off? What about Tesla stock? Do you think it's going to go up? What about this sports bet? That's like an investment. Like, should I invest or should I bet on who's going to win the Super Bowl, right? So what they're subconsciously saying without realizing it is, you know what? I would rather bet on something or someone else than myself because I don't think I'm capable of actually getting a return. So I'm just going to go hope Elon does it for me or that other people hype Bitcoin and it goes for me. Like, I'm going to just bet on other people than me. And clearly, if that's your idea, then you'll suck. Yep. You'll fail. So I always say, number one, invest in yourself. Number two, the next best investment is into your business. So once you understand yourself, like, okay, so what am I investing in with myself? Well, if we're talking about making money, you're investing in skills that make money. Mm-hmm. You're going to go learn how to flip a house, how to wholesale a house. You're going to go learn how to run ads. You're going to go learn how to whatever the skill is that you want to make money with, you're going to learn how to go do sales and become a great salesperson, right? But step two then is becoming, hey, you know what? I always think as an entrepreneur, so the second best investment you need to make is in your business. So what does that mean? Well, that means you got to go actually buy things that your business needs. And I'm not talking about a computer and all this stuff. Like, yeah, you should have that. You probably already have that. I'm talking about buying leads. Softwares, the things you need to run your business, invest into your business. Most people, it's like you would make more money if you just bought more leads. That's it. Mm-hmm. Like, once you have a good product, once you know what you're doing, all you need is just more lead flow. And getting more leads costs something, always. So, second one is invest in your business. The third, assuming you're an entrepreneur, is now invest in people. Once you have a business that makes money, now you got to just invest in people because you have a process, you have a thing. Okay, cool. Like, how do I scale me? You scale you by getting people. So now, all right, cool. I'll teach other people to work these leads now. I'll teach other people to fulfill on the product. And then boom, right now I can go generate more leads, invest more into the business because I have people. And then, everything is now going to start to cycle and grow. And, all the richest people in the world, that's what they do. They all have a business that makes them money. And then, that business first starts out with them as a solopreneur. And then eventually they hire people. And then, they start making real money. Mm-hmm. And then once you have that, think about a rental. Think about Bitcoin. Think about Tesla, whatever. But in reality, you need to go back to step one again. And now that you're making money, reinvest in yourself again for new skills that the business needs. Then reinvest in the business, buy more leads, hire more people. Like, really, you shouldn't even go to that stuff. It should just keep going into the business and what you want to do. But eventually, if you want to buy that, buy it.
Okay, so I love it. Investing in yourself, it's like on a balance sheet, you are your greatest asset and you don't even show up on a typical balance sheet. And this is like, a lot of people say this. What I'm curious is, how does that, like, if someone came to you and said, Ryan, like, okay, what does this look like? Are you essentially saying investing in yourself means finding the most valuable leverage skill set for you then to start a business? So like, when you know that mark is checked, because we both know people that go to masterminds, they're constantly investing in themselves, but they're not doing anything with that. So there's no accountability to, like, is your investment actually working?
Well, I mean, I guess, yeah, okay, so you start learning. The next logical step is you invest in the business. So,
That's right.
So, okay, I learned. Did you ever even invest in the business? Because a lot of people, like, just stay learning.
Yeah.
They don't ever actually start the business or
what
buy
type
the
of
leads.
questions would you ask yourself if you were if you were just beginning and figuring out, what do I actually want to do? Should I do real estate? Should I do social media? Should I do, like...
So this is the thing I always tell people, right? People are so confused now because there's so much information out there. And they think everyone's lying to them and or trying to scam them or whatever. And I'm like, no, like, all of them work. That's the problem. Lots of people make money flipping. Lots of people make money wholesaling. Lots of people make money on Airbnb. Lots of people make money in ads. Lots of people make money in tax. Like, whatever. They all make money. The question is, just pick one. Just pick one. If you pick one, you win. And they're like, but which one to pick? I don't care. Pick it out of a hat. Pick whatever one you feel like resonates with you the most. Don't think about it too hard. Just pick.
Yeah. If you had to give top 3 skills that you would say someone should be investing in, it's like ability to publicly speak, ability to sell, ability to
sell. You have to sell. I wouldn't even worry about any of the other ones. Like, once you learn to sell, like, learning to speak becomes part of that. Once you learn how to sell, even too, you start to learn how to market. Obviously, marketing and all those things are like their own skill sets in itself. But it's like, dude, if you just learn how to sell and talk to people, you'll figure out kind of the other things as you go along.
Yeah, business framework. What in any business, obviously you need an offer, you need a sales process, you need marketing. What is your framework on how, when you view business? It's interesting. I view business the same way I view investing. You have inputs, you have outputs. At the end of the day, what are those outputs and frameworks that you think about when you think about business?
Yeah, so I have a 5-step business framework. And even before starting a business, I forgot to mention this even with investing, but for a lot of people who are just starting out, the real question you got to ask yourself when it comes to building wealth is, okay, like, clearly I got to make more money. Like, how do I do that, right? And clearly, like, there's not enough time in the day. So I always tell people there's this employee mindset versus the owner mindset. So the employee mindset is really simple, but, like, it's so drastically different than the owner mindset. So the employee mindset says, hey, you know what? I'm going to trade time for money. Now, we don't really think about this, but what's happening to people throughout their whole lives thinking this way is a sense of entitlement. Employees unintentionally think that because I work a certain amount of time, I deserve a certain amount of pay. And that's just not what the owner's mindset is, okay? And I'll talk about that in a sec. But when you're an employee, you really only have 2 options to make more money. You either work more time to make more money, or you hope that your boss gives you a raise, and then you make more money. But, there's always a cap to what your job can pay. And it's not like there's this crazy amount of money out there for most employees. Like, if you're stuck at $5,000 a month, $10,000 a month, odds are, your current skill set is probably a $5,000 to $10,000 a month skill set. And you want to go make 20, 30, 40 grand a month. Like, there's very few jobs that do that. So, you're more than likely going to have to just become a business owner. So the reason employees have a hard time switching to a business owner is because it's the reverse equation. The reverse is, I am going to put up money first for other people's time, and in turn, I will make more money. So it's this thing of, and I see it all the time. People are like, man, dude, like, I want to start it, but dude, like, what if it doesn't work? I go, yeah, that's the value prop. You have to put up the money first. And guess what? Just because you work hard doesn't mean you make anything. It's the opposite of an employee. And are you willing to put up money first and get other people's time and pay them, right? Because everything is basically, you could look at anything in this room and it's just simply a mechanism of somebody spent time to make it, and that's the price. So this TV, leads, right? Because I tell people, I'm like, okay, you want to generate leads, you want to do it for free? Like, you're just going to have to spend time. I'll give you leads right now. You can buy my time, right? And it's not even my time because I paid somebody else their time to generate the lead, right? But either way, a business owner takes money, buys time from other people, and then in turn, the hope is that money is multiplied significantly. And you have to be okay with that equation. Or else and this is what unfortunately most people get stuck in, is still the employee mindset, but they're just now self-employed. That's why it still says employed, because you're just still trading time for money. Like realtors deal with this all the time. Realtors are like, oh yeah, like I have a business. I'm a realtor. I'm like, no, you don't. You still think that, okay, I'm just going to go work and then I make money. Like I just go network and do the stuff. No, it's like
financial planners are in the same boat.
Same boat, right? They're not actual business owners. They are still employees. They're just self-employed. So you got to wrap your head around that first and foremost. I'm willing to put up money first with no guarantee, and that is why I can go make 10x whatever the money I put up.
Is that step number 1 in the 5-step framework?
No, that's friggin' the prerequisite.
Okay, that's just okay.
So once you get past that, okay, cool. Now let's build a business. All right. So here's the 5-step framework, right? Step 1 is offer. You have to have an offer. And man, a bad offer, I don't care how good you are at marketing and sales, it'll never work. So you're going to start out with an offer. Now, the first version of your offer is going to suck. I always tell people this. I'm like, it's all good. It's going to suck. Just plan on that, okay? So just throw anything up there. Don't worry about what or, just like, okay, that sounds like a good idea. Great. Let's test it. Because each step of the way is a test. And as you test, you start to figure out which step is the bottleneck. So, okay, step 1, I'm going to go to my offer. All right, great. This is what I created. This is what I'm going to sell it for. Here's what they get. All that stuff, right? Step 2 is marketing. Okay, how do I get this in front of people? What am I going to do? Am I going to go text everyone in my phone? Am I going to go run some ads? Am I going to go door knock people? Am I going to go do free events? Like, what am I going to do? I got to go get this offer out there to the market and see what they think. Okay. Step 3, sales. Now I'm going to go out there and try to sell this thing. I'm going to go pitch my best. I'm going to stumble on my words. I'm not going to even know yet what kind of objections I'm getting, whether it's the price, whether it's the deliverables, whether it's just how I position it, whether I'm even in front of the right audience. But either way, I'm going to do my best to sell. Step 4 is operations. Okay, once I've sold something, assuming I did, now I got to fulfill. So, okay, what's fulfillment look like? How quickly can I do this? How much access do they get? What do they get? How long does this work for? All right, is there an upsell in here? When does ascension happen? When does expansion happen? Okay, whatever. Then step 5 is finance. Once it's all said and done, what did we make? Was everything we did profitable? Was the offer, profitable? Was our customer acquisition cost where it needs to be? How was our conversion rate with sales? What was the customer satisfaction? Did they stay with us? Do they want to buy more from us? What does the balance sheet, what does the P&L say about this situation? And here's what happens. Once you go through one iteration, you go right back to the top. You say, okay, based on what I learned, okay, what was he saying in those sales objections about the offer? Okay, let's try changing the price. Let's try changing the upfront cost, whatever. Okay, let's test it out. Okay. Also, too, last time we were marketing, we realized that this was working really good. Let's put some more dollars on that instead and more focus on that. Okay, great. Okay, now I'm in front of even more people. Great. Let's try the new pitch. I know the objections. Okay, cool. We closed more people this time. All right, cool. Now I got more people. Crap, there's a big bottleneck here because I have too many people. All right, now I got to hire some staff. Now I got to do this. Okay, now let's look at the P&L. Oh, man, we didn't make as much money because I had to hire all these extra people. Crap. All right, let's go back to the top. All right. Change the offer. We can't give them as much as maybe we wanted to with this way, but now we can do it in a group setting that's more profitable and this. And then, okay, market, it just is always a constant cycle of this. And then you're always going to bottleneck at a certain point. So at some point, right, the business is working, it's making money, and maybe you get to $1 million. And you're like, I can't figure out how to get past $1 million. Well, there's a bottleneck somewhere that prevents you from breaking through. A lot of people think it's marketing. In a lot of cases, it's not. In a lot of cases, it's your offer's just not scalable. It could just be you one-on-one. It's like, well, dude, you've capped out. You can't even do it anymore. We got to change the offer. Well, maybe it's not the offer. Maybe you just don't spend enough money. You're too scared.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I can't scale. You need to spend way more. Right? Maybe you spend more, but now the conversions plummet. Well, why did they plummet? Well, you didn't hire enough sales guys. Like, there's a bottleneck every step of the way.
And I would say the art of business is learning about constraints, finding the constraint, and fixing it essentially and addressing it. How do you determine what is the most important thing? Like I read the book, The Goal. It's and it's, they have a process there, and it really opens your eyes to, is this even a constraint? A lot of people think, for example, some people think like in the financial space, they think they have a leads problem. And they do, but if you look at their process, they're not inspiring, they have no brand, they suck at sales. So it's like, all right, we could talk about leads, but would more leads actually solve your problem, or is there something else?
Yeah, but that's a great book, by the way, for anyone who, most people have never heard of it, The Goal. Really good fiction. It's a fiction.
It's a great book.
Like fable,
it's great
I
to
guess.
listen to.
Yeah, it's a thick book. I read it. I haven't listened to it. I need to re-listen to it again. But yeah, I mean, like each step is so intricate. Like I'll just give you an example. I have two main businesses at this point. We have our real estate investing business where we mainly flip and wholesale houses. We do some syndications and stuff, but the main thing is flipping and wholesaling. And then I don't even like calling it education anymore because it's not. But, we have this real estate platform. It's called Wealthy Investor. And now we give people leads, softwares, funding, coaching. It's just an all-in-one platform. And that's now monthly recurring and everything else. So when I think about those two products and businesses, I think about them from the framework I said, okay, so what's the offer? What do we sell? Okay, on one hand over here, we sell, hey, we're going to close for, we're going to give you a cash offer on your home, everything else. But we got other strategies, if that doesn't work. So we've got cool creative deals and things we can do. On the platform side, the real estate education, I look at it and I go, what do we offer? Well, we used to just offer education. Hey, we'll teach you how to do this. But now it's like, no, dude, we'll literally give you the whole thing. Like, you don't got to worry about marketing. You don't got to worry about your sales process. You don't got to worry about your CRM, your technology, where the money's going to come. We have it all. And I'm like, yeah, so clearly that offer's like really good versus what it used to be. And by the way, what it used to be generated tens of millions of dollars. So now the offer's significantly better. Okay, so those are the offers. What happens in marketing? Well, this is where brand comes into play. Like on the real estate investing side, because of the brand I built, because I've been doing it so long, I get deals sent to me all the time. If I make an offer on something, realtors are more likely to take it. If I make an offer to a seller, they may have seen me on social media before. So brand amplifies any kind of paid that I do. And so that's one thing, right? Like if you don't have brand, it's not like you can build it right away. It's a long-term play. So you're going to have to do paid and other things. But in the long run, you definitely want to build brand and build really good paid strategies. And let's say brand / organic, On the wealthy investor side, it's like, yeah, I make content. I do all these things. It gets people to, be curious about real estate, build trust, whatever. And then on the marketing side too, it's like that has always changed over the years. I mean, dude, back in the day, I did no marketing, no paid. It was just all YouTube videos and people would just buy and we did great. Then we started doing paid and it's like, okay, how do you do paid? Dude, I have done at this point every funnel you can imagine. I mean, we've done big live events with 1,000+ people, WealthCon. We've done book a call funnels. We've done 3-day workshops, 3-day challenges, webinars, low ticket funnels, communities. Like I've done them all. And sometimes things work in certain seasons and other times you got to switch it up. And so for me, on the marketing side over there, I've really kind of switched my gears on thinking about how I look at marketing. And that could be a whole separate subject because there's like, now I look at scale and I look at guys who have built $100 million companies and I understand now the metrics they look for in marketing. It's very different than how I've been looking at it. Interesting. But then you go to sales on both of those. It's like, okay, we're generating all these leads. How is the sales process going? And so we've had to change sales process on both of those companies, So on like the real estate investing side, we used to go on in-person appointments all the time. Now we close everything over the phone. It's very different, but the world is different.
Yeah.
People are like, no, dude, like what's the offer? That used to not be the case. Like you trying to buy a house over the phone 5 to 10 years ago was weird. They're like, are you serious? You're going to buy it without seeing it? You're crazy. But now it's normal. Open Door and Zillow and all, like it's just become normal. Like, yeah, like we can do a deal over the phone. On the wealthy investor side, you look at it and it's like back, 3 to 5 years ago, people were way more willing to just buy education and things right here, right now. But today, consumers are way more skeptical than ever before. And it just is what it is. This is not like a me problem or any, like, it's just people are way less willing to buy education than before. So I had to change my offer because education didn't sell as good anymore. So, you know, you look at the sales process, then you look at operations, and it's like, okay, you know, on the flipping side, I used to have 70 house flips at any one moment. That's a lot of construction. That's a lot of operations. That's a lot of cash out, a lot of debt out. It's a lot of stuff. Now we wholesale where we don't have to do that. Yep. Operations got way easier. On the wealthy investor side, you look at it and you're like, well, operationally, it's not just education anymore. So we got to do lead generation for them. You know, we got these softwares we got to train them on. We do one-on-one coaching now, not group. We have groups still too, but like now anyone has one-on-one coaching. So I need more coaches available for that. We have funding. So now I need more back-end funding partners. So it's like the operation got
it's constantly
a lot more complex with more services. Yeah. But that was what was required to make the offer ultra valuable, right? And then you look at the finance side. Okay, on the finance side, I have way less risk exposure wholesaling than I do flipping. I'm excited about that. Yeah, maybe I don't make as much per deal as I used to, but you know what? I'm becoming more like Ramsey as time goes on. I'm like, you know what? I'm kind of okay with that. Then on the flip side, right, you look at the finance side of wealthy investor, and now that it's monthly recurring revenue, I can just see it compounding and just growing month over month. And I look at what could this be worth enterprise value down the road one day if I wanted to sell or whatever else, and it's clearly worth significantly more than the old model. So, like, I run my own businesses through that, and they've all evolved over the years. But yeah, brand and all that's really important too.
So I want to touch on people real quick, but then I want to transition to, okay, we talked about making money, and obviously this is like a masterclass for entrepreneurs. You've been so generous in giving your framework of how you invest in yourself, how you look at business. I want to touch on invest in people, but then I want to know, like, what does Ryan Pineda do with his money? Are you all in on your business and that's it? Or do you have other investments? And then I would love for you to also touch on, hey, okay, let's say you're in business and you've maxed out, like, you're good with your lifestyle business, or you're maybe working in a job, you're great, and you're wondering, should you put your money in the S&P and all? I want to talk about that secondarily. Let's close the loop on investing in people, because Tiffany, shout out Tiffany, incredible humans that I've interacted with. Like, you've clearly have done a phenomenal job in investing in great people.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, that's the only way to scale. You need people, you need talent, you need a product that scales. And so, I think we have like probably 50 employees right now, and it's great. Majority of them are here.
Core values, like, how do you attract great people?
Brand attracts great people, not just customers, right? I mean, that's something too. Like, when you're trying to attract people, you kind of follow the same framework.
That's right.
Right? It's like, what's the offer? Well, here's the offer. Yeah. You're going to get paid this. These are your hours.
That's good.
This is like, the upside. Like, so it's an offer. And then the marketing. How do I find these people? Same thing. Social media, job ads. How do I sell them on working here? Right? How do I fulfill? How do I create great culture that makes them want to stay?
Yeah, that's good.
Finance. Can I actually, like, are they producing what I'm paying them for?
Yeah.
It's all the same.
And it's actually interesting. Even in investing in yourself, you could take that 5-step framework and it's a version of, like, you got to figure out, you are your offer at first. Like, what is the skill set that you're bringing? How are you getting in front of people? How are you selling yourself to other people? So I love the 5-step framework. It's very universal in all three areas.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about your personal portfolio. Like, okay, you're all in on business. This is, obviously, business is huge. Are you investing in other things like the S&P, crypto, real estate yourself? Like, what does your portfolio look like?
Yeah, good question. It's interesting because, like, real estate is my business.
Yeah.
So technically, obviously a lot of real estate. We buy flips. We have syndications. I have rentals. So, money goes into real estate. That's one thing. My main focus is the business. So investing into things that can help the business grow, investing into future things that the business would use, like big events cost hundreds of thousands to go get everything set up and everything else, and you wait and all this stuff. And, like, even the way we're thinking about marketing now, I want to get to spending $1 million a month. Like that's my goal. And we're not close to that yet. But now, I mean, we went from spending $50,000 a month at a Wealthy Investor to $100,000. And yeah, when we'd have big events, we would spend more, but like just consistently the last few months. And now it's like, all right, we're spending about $10,000 a day now. And I'm like getting ready to really scale this thing because I found a way to liquidate quicker. So like lots of money in cash is going to business and everything else. I keep basically reserves in a money market. I don't want it tied to stocks that can go up and down. I would rather take 5% and just know it's going to be 5%. So that's kind of how I hold reserves on that front.
How much reserves do you hold in business percentage wise and your personal percentage wise? Well,
the weird thing is I own all of it. So business, I own 100% of all of it. So like to me, it's all the same, right? But I always want to have what I call my sleep good at night money. So that's like my reserves that I don't want them to go lower than that. I don't have like a formula for it.
Is it 6 months, a year?
Well, like I said, I don't even have a formula for it. Like I just have my gut.
This is just like, what does Ryan feel
Yeah,
like?
I feel like that feels good. But yeah, it's 7 figures. And I'm like, that feels good. Like with the amount of expenses we have, lifestyle, all this stuff, like that's just kind of how I roll.
Yeah.
And it probably should be more scientific than that, but I've never operated that way. Because my mindset has always been, oh man, if there's a problem, let's make money. Yeah. Let's figure out how to go make money. So
and to Dave Ramsey's credit, some of this stuff, like you're not in debt to what you're like, you can always pivot.
Yeah.
You can pivot, you can downsize if you actually needed to. So there's not like you're stuck. Sorry.
Yeah, 100%, right? Like if it's not working, I don't have to spend $10,000 a day on ads. So that's how I do that. You know, with other things, I actually never really was a stock investor. I remember in COVID, that was the first time I ever bought stocks because I was like, these are so cheap. I literally was like, I have this IRA with a few $100,000 in it. I'm just going to buy stocks. So I just picked them. I was like, Tesla, I really like Tesla. I put half of it on Tesla. I was like, I like Del Taco. That seems undervalued at $3 or whatever it was. I was like, I'm going to buy Del Taco.
It's an entrepreneur through and through.
Yeah, I'm like, this is a well-run business. And so I bought them all. And I did double it in like 4 months. I was like, maybe I'm just a good stock. I don't know. But no, it was just literally COVID tanked the market like 50% or something when that happened. And then it rebounded like pretty quick thereafter. And I exited. I mean, obviously, if I would have held Tesla and stuff now, I mean, freak. It's probably 10x since COVID. I don't even know.
It's done well.
Like I should have probably held it, you know, but it's all good. So I don't do that. Over the years, crypto's been interesting. So I've had a 7-figure crypto portfolio before. And, you know, as time has gone on, it's just like, it's so volatile. Like I have a love-hate with crypto. So the love is that like, I'm a firm believer that there's going to be lots of things the blockchain and crypto is used for in the future. Yeah. I'm also a firm believer that Bitcoin is pretty much the only way. Like all the other things, like they honestly have no purpose. Like people, XRP does this and Ethereum does that. And it's like, yeah, but I don't know. Bitcoin to me is like, it makes sense. You know, I did an NFT and it was successful, but then had lawsuits and all this other stuff. And it's like, so I just have a love-hate with crypto because I believe in it. But then it's like, even you look at just different things, even like the NFT space, and it's like, man, like they could be used for so good, but people are maybe looking at them the wrong way, where it's like they're treating them like stocks, which they're not. And like, it's just such a new space that it's just going to take time for it to really pan out. Because like people don't even use Bitcoin for anything.
That's right. It's not a currency.
No.
Yet.
And it's like, in time, all these things that we're excited about today, I think they're going to work in the future, but it's just like we're not anywhere close.
Yeah, I was with Mark Moss recently, and he made a really good argument on how Bitcoin can get to $1 million. And,
I think it will too.
And it's super interesting, but being an entrepreneur, I think it goes back to, are we going to just stake on that?
Hoping Bitcoin does it?
Are we going to invest in a thing that actually generates what we're doing?
Well, and here's the thing I've started to realize too. about more passive investing, right? Because Bitcoin is a passive investment. So I have a new theory that if I ever had enough cash, what would I do? So let's just say somebody came and bought Wealthy Investor, and I don't know. I don't even want to put a number out there, but let's just say, no, like, okay, so Ty Lopez actually got me thinking about this, ironically. I had Ty here 2 months ago or so, and he goes, Ryan, what would be your perfect walk away number? Like the rest of your life, if you made that money, how much do you need? And I was like, I just threw a number out there. I was like, I don't know. If I can make $250 a month, I'd walk away from everything. And I was like, I don't need $250 a month to live. Like, I don't spend $250,000 a month, but like, you know, I'd probably spend $50K a month. And then, you know, I got the rest of it to, you know, give and, you know, reinvest, whatever. Like $250 a month sounds good. He's like, okay, I'm going to ask ChatGPT right now how much liquid cash you need. And so he goes into chat and does it on the show. And it came out to like $30 million.
Yeah, it's not that much.
Yeah, he's like, so if you had $30 million, Ryan, you could have $250 a month that, you know, just throw it on the stock market, 8%. You would get 8% a month and you'd be good. He goes, so what you just said is if somebody offered you $30 million for your company, you should take it. And I was like, that makes sense. I've never even thought about it like that. So yeah, I've thought about that recently a lot because I've been in real estate a long time where I hate rentals in terms of their cash flow. They don't cash flow. They're long-term things. And once they're paid off, sure, they cash flow. But even like, I like them for like long-term investments. I like them for depreciation and all those things. But the more I've thought about it, long-term, right? For example, let's say I did get $30 million. Would I go buy $30 million worth of rentals, cash, or would I go buy like even financed and go buy $100 million? Like, would I do that? And I started to run the numbers in my head and I was like, okay, if I had 30 million cash, would I buy the rentals? Let's see. Okay. Let's just say, you know, the average cash on cash return of a rental. I mean, like, I'll just use a small number right now. Okay. So if a $500,000 house here in Las Vegas rents for about $3,000, I own it for cash. So I'm making $3,000 a month. You know, but there's still expenses, there's still vacancy, repairs, all this stuff. Maybe it nets, I don't know, $24,000 a month. So what's the cash on cash? You know, $24,000 on $500K. What is that?
What is that?
It's like 5%.
Yeah, because 100 million 50, about 5%.
Yeah, so you're like, that's not good. I could just put it in a money market.
Yeah, no kidding. And
right?
have liquidity.
And no headache.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm like, okay, that doesn't make sense. And then if I take on all this debt, now I'm putting my whole fortune at risk. And I'm like, that doesn't make sense. Okay. You know, I start to see why the wealthiest people just invest in stocks. Like, it makes sense because you don't have to do anything and it's going to make 8%. It just putting in this, like, it just is. But then I thought about it even deeper. I was like, you know what I actually would do? This would be what I would do. I would invest in I would do hard money loans because the wealthiest people I know have been lending me money for years. They always get paid back. And like the thought is, as a hard money lender, I could easily average 15+% because most loans are going to be 10 to 12.
First position,
you charge a point. Maybe 2, maybe more if you get a little more risky with it. But the point is, I could easily average 15%, maybe even 20. I have the people to lend to. I have them all, right? Could easily deploy $20 million. And at that point, what's the worst case scenario? Like if the stock market plummets, like you're going to kind of have to wait for the rebound and for it to build up. The worst case is I foreclose on this guy and I own a property. Supposedly, if I underwrote a good under market value too, because I'm not lending on bad deals. So I think about that and I'm like, well, if I just became a hard money lender and you have 20 million cash at easy numbers, say 20%, that's $4 million a year.
A lot of family offices are doing credit funds And that's
the same concept.
It's the same concept, just less money, but you could say less risk because it's more in a portfolio versus just one house.
Yeah.
It's powerful, man.
Yeah. So like I think about that and I'm like, okay, not that this is like the end all be all, but I'm like, okay, what if then, wouldn't the best strategy be if I was optimizing for lifestyle and like done for life, it would be figure out how to get $20 million, lend it out the rest of your life. And I'd be making literally passively, $3-4 million a year.
Is this an area that you would potentially pivot to as a business? Because you have the deals, you have the people. I imagine,
but I don't have $20 million cash liquid.
No, but you have investors. You have accredited investors that watch you that want better.
Oh, yeah. And so I'm already doing that.
Okay.
So we have the hard money lending.
Yeah.
And essentially, I already have like...
You're like the middle person between...
Yeah. Like I'll just make a point originating the deal.
Got it.
So like we already do that. It just the difference would be I'd be the rich guy. Like making the 12%.
Yeah. Ryan, what would you do if you were an accredited investor? You were not like you're either exited your business or you're making high income and you want to invest. I know you just said hard money lending, but if you were to sit down and be like, this is what I would do if you're not an entrepreneur and you want to be wealthy. Number one, is that even possible? And number two, what is the path to do that? You're the real estate guy, so I almost see you as the real estate guy, but you're using real estate as a way to do entrepreneurship. So
100%. I am more of an entrepreneur than anything.
Yeah.
Real estate just happens to be one of the things I do. Honestly, and this goes back to what you're like, so how do people choose? I'm like, I wouldn't have chose real estate. I just found myself here. And it's worked.
It was the input to output ratio. There was leverage there because you're creating a greater result for your input.
So what would I do if I was a normal, W-2 person who's trying to build wealth, fixed income, trying to save and invest in things? I mean, look, I at that point, because here's the thing, right? You still end up being an entrepreneur. That's what people don't realize. If you want to be a real estate investor, it is an entrepreneurial thing for most people. Because let's just say I tell you, hey, you should buy an Airbnb. You should buy a rental. Well, guess what? You got to build a wholesale business anyway. You're going to have to go market and find deals. You're going to have to go negotiate the deals. But that's the same thing I do. It's just you're deciding to buy. I do the same thing.
Yeah.
Like it's no different. So either way, you're kind of starting a business. And then at that point, my argument is, well, if you're going to actually put all this time into like looking for deals, yeah, I know you only want to buy one rental a year or whatever, but don't stop looking for deals. Wholesale the rest of them.
That's right.
And now you have a wholesale business.
Yeah.
So like for me, you're basically either going to become an entrepreneur if you're going to choose like, I want to buy single family real estate. If you're truly accredited and you want to be truly passive, all you can do is invest in a syndication. I mean, there's not anything else in real estate that's like not entrepreneurial.
Or a credit fund or
a REIT, whatever.
When it comes to future predictions on real estate, obviously syndications, you've mentioned syndications. They've had their ups and downs recently with interest rates. What is your future prediction? Trump's in office. There seems to be some optimism. Interest rates are still high. There seems to be still some dumb money out there. What is Ryan Pineda's real estate predictions for the future?
Well, I think this year's going to just be kind of like very little growth in 25. 26 definitely going to get better. I think 27 will be probably really good. I mean, it's harder to say after that, but I mean, interest rate wise, I mean, Trump's going to lower them.
Yeah. He's very clear about
he's going to force them. So, I mean, like we know that's going to happen. And whenever rates lower, prices go up. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, to your point too about syndications, multifamily and commercial is like in a really bad spot because it's so heavily dependent on rates. I mean, we have multifamily deals right now. Most of them are good. One of them's not. And it's like the freaking rates are what they are. Yeah. It's like when we bought the properties, rates were 3%. Nobody was budgeting that they would become 8%. Yep. What are you going to do? And buyers can't justify the exit price that you're hoping for. So it's like, it's a tough position to be in. And that's actually one thing I've kind of like realized too over time is like, I understand why accredited investing exists now. Because, if you're an investor you're going to lose. That's just, I've lost on many deals in my life, and I don't get mad about it. I don't wishy-washy, but people who don't understand that, they don't get that.
And the gamble economy is so wild. Like the what people will do or put stake on like a football game is insane to me.
They're okay to lose that.
Yeah, but it's just wild to me, like the lack of due diligence, which leads me to my next question about risk. One of the things that even Dave Ramsey talks about this. He talks about debt. You also have to factor in risk.
Yeah.
What's your definition and view of risk and how you view things?
I think there's definitely a risk curve as you age. When you're young, dude, you better take every risk imaginable.
But how do you define risk? Some people define it as your chance of loss. Some people define it as uncertainty. Like, how does Ryan think about risk?
Risk, you have to also talk about reward. I mean, there's no way to just say, oh, this is risk. Everything has risk, right? Mm-hmm. So I think what you're really trying to maximize, this is the first time I've ever kind of like tried to talk this through, but I think there's 3 ideas that happen with risk versus reward. So there is your risk tolerance, there is your reward optimism, and then there's basically time. So if you're young, you obviously have more time. So therefore, you should take more risk for more reward. But if you're older, you have less time, and you kind of like, you've worked really hard to build up what you have, so you should probably take less risk, and you're going to have less reward. I also think, and maybe there's a 4th quadrant too of like your situation, because your situation matters as well. Like if you're broke, you literally have no risk.
Yeah.
People trip, like it pains me how much broke people are scared to take risk.
Yeah. It's like, what do you got to lose?
I'm like, your life sucks. It's guaranteed to suck if you do nothing. Do something. But if you're rich and you're doing well and you're or not even rich but content with your life, I get it. It's like, this risk could make you way worse for very marginal gain for your life. So I get it. So it's like those 4 things are always at play with each other. So I think everybody needs to really analyze their priorities. It's like, okay, if I was to say it today, where's your life at currently? Are you happy or not?
Yep.
If you're happy, then you should probably take less risk.
Yep.
If you're unhappy, you need to take more risk. You don't have a choice.
And I think even what you're saying is like you're becoming more conservative, but you have an amazing
because I'm
life.
happier.
You're happier. That's the key.
Yeah, like
there's something there.
It's marginal gain to really go for it.
Honestly, I think what you just articulated with risk and this concept of investing in yourself, I think there's something there on like even the framework of what path you should go, and I think you're onto something.
Yeah.
In the few minutes we have left, I have two more questions. One, Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Most people, probably including yourself, have been influenced by his work.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on him as a person, his teaching, and is there any critique that you'd give Robert?
I don't really know him as a person, so I can't say. I really haven't followed too much of his teaching. Like, I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad like 15 years ago, and that was the last time I did anything on him. But I will say, just based on like knowing the stereotype, I don't think his advice works anymore for buying rentals. That's my only critique. I think that book was written 30 years ago, and it was true. When the book was written, it was like, yeah, dude, buy rentals, take debt. There's this massive delta of cash flow. You buy enough rentals, you live off the cash flow. That's like basically all I remember, and that's how I think most people are influenced. And it's like, yes, that worked. When the book was written, it even worked in 2010, 2011, 2012 when prices were what they were. It don't work today.
Yep.
It literally will never work today. And I don't know that it will work in this new reality we live in. Because when that book was written and when people were doing that, there was no hedge funds really buying real estate. Like prices we're at all-time high prices. Rates may have been the same, but, income has not increased at the same rate. Like the price, what do they call it? The affordability index. Like we're at some crazy level right now.
Yeah.
It's way cheaper to rent for people.
Concept's good, but my critique is, number one, real estate's not the end all be all for everything.
Yeah.
And number two, this concept of passive income, I think, can be toxic to the person, especially young and hungry, it's like, why are you trying to optimize around passive? Like,
Yeah.
you are your greatest asset. Last question. This is your last day on earth. You're with the people that you love the most. You can't give them any book, podcast. You just have one last conversation. What are you saying, and why are you saying it?
I got to make sure they're saved. I mean, it all has to come back to Jesus. I mean, we met in a Christian mastermind, but and we haven't talked about faith too much today, but there's a really good book called Driven by Eternity by John Bevere. And he makes this it ties right into your last question he goes, hey, imagine if someone came to you and they said, hey, the next 24 hours of your life are going to determine the next 1,000 years. What would you do? And it's like a crazy thing to fathom, but I'd be like, well, yeah, I mean, I would probably if I only knew I had 24 hours, I'd just give it all away. I would tell people, or I'd just be serve. I would just be the nicest person ever, because hopefully that would dictate the next 1,000 years. And he goes, well, did you realize that life is that's not even a fraction of what it actually is, right? We let's say you live on earth 80 years, may seem like a long time, but in the span of eternity, it's nothing.
It's nothing.
1 day to 1,000 years is not even close to we can't fathom what eternity actually is. And he just makes the argument. It's like, so how are you spending your life? Are you honoring God? Are you telling people about him? Are you serving him? Are you being obedient? And it's like, man, when you look at it from that perspective, how am I investing into eternity? Because, yeah, dude, I want to make more cash flow today. I want to build a nest egg and retirement and wealth and passive income and all these things, but none of it matters in eternity. Yeah. Literally has no bearing. But God does tell us that there is eternal ROI. Everything we do on this life, the way we steward our money, the way we are obedient to him, the actions we take, the people we impact, there is literally these treasures in heaven that we can't quantify. The Bible talks about that. I don't really know how it plays out, but I also don't think that everything in heaven is the same. The Bible talks about it in Revelations and everything else, that there's different areas of heaven. There's different rooms. There's different everything. Some people have more prestige than others in heaven. There's kind of this ranking thing going on. Dude, it's awesome for everyone who's there. So it's not even if you're a peasant in heaven, it's great, right? But still, there is this thing going on that we don't really fully know. And so for me, I really think about that. It's am I so focused on today's ROI, or am I investing for eternity? And, with your 24-hour question, it's really simple. It's I already know exactly what I do. If there's only 24 hours left, I'd be giving it all away. I would be telling everyone about Jesus. I'd be making sure I'm right with God. I'd be doing all those things.
Yeah. What does it profit a man to gain the whole world and lose their soul?
Yeah.
Ryan, thank you. We'll include all the links to all your amazing things down below. I appreciate you, and I know that this day has been crazy.
Yeah.
So thank you for taking time to make this happen.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man.